Welcome to Trailblazers and Titans with your host, Dr. Keith Haney. Trailblazers and Titans is your go-to podcast for insights, inspiration, and actionable advice from the world's most successful entrepreneurs and leaders. Each episode features in-depth interviews with industry pioneers, innovative thinkers, and business moguls who share their journeys, challenges, and strategies for success. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned leader, or someone looking to make a significant impact, this podcast provides the tools and motivation to blaze your trail and become a titan in your field. Tune in to learn, grow, and transform your vision into reality.
My guest today is Michelle Gladieux. She's been called a human potential whisperer. She is the author of the award-winning book, Communicate with Courage, and she's president of Gladieux Consulting, a team known for top-notch seminars and communication leadership topics around the U.S. She has 18 years of collegiate teaching experience at 3 universities in her home state of Indiana, accepting her first faculty position teaching organizational leadership at age 23. She's worked in human resources and training director in a cold storage, robotics, construction industries, and enjoys visiting conferences as keynote speaker. She has mentored thousands of people, and her positive effect on those she advises is evident even as just one interaction. We welcome her to the podcast. Hi, Michelle. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Doing great. So pleased to be here to talk communication with a communicator like yourself.
I love your last name. It reminds me of my home state of Louisiana. Everything we have ends in that same IEUX. So go Saints and all that. So it's good to have you on.
Yeah. Laissez le bon temps rouler, right?
That's right. Love my little French state of Louisiana. But it's fun to have you on.
I'm really happy to be here. I was thrilled to see that you had my book in hand. So thanks for looking into that.
I always love looking at ways how people communicate, because I know in my profession, the one thing that causes the most issues in an organization is lack of communication. So,
yeah. Well, some people are hard to communicate with, and I know all of us find it very challenging to communicate certain things in certain circumstances. And that's sort of why I brought the theme of courage into the book, because I find myself sometimes holding back when I really am ready and being truthful, and there's something I need to say or that I could offer that might help someone else. And I'm hoping that our listeners will think about that as we discuss communication and maybe choose a goal for themselves that will help them be more brave and effective in the year ahead.
Yeah, because I've worked in organizations where, because lack of courage and communication, we end up, the organization suffers, the employees suffer, everyone suffers because we don't have the courage to say what needs to be said. So it'll be a fun conversation.
Okay.
But before we get into too deep into that, we got to go to my favorite go-to question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I've received a lot of great advice, but I have to say that this brought to mind my mom and dad. I love them very much. They're now deceased, but they had a lot of pithy little things they would say to us kids. And my mom really liked to quote Shakespeare, who might have been quoting someone else based on recent research I've seen, but she would always remind me, to thine own self be true. And she counseled me through a lot of heartache when I was a kid. I felt different. I think I was perceived differently. I certainly wasn't a super popular kid. And whenever I was feeling on the outside, she would remind me that we can have a rich inner life that can sustain us. So I like to thine own self be true. And my dad would often say, keep your nose clean. And I think what he meant was, stay out of trouble, I love you, because he knew I would be a risk taker and I would be probably engaged in some risky communication. Maybe telling a teacher what I really thought, but they both preached the value of education, diplomacy, and assertiveness. So I got good advice from those two.
I love that. And assertiveness can be good.
It's good to scoop in some diplomacy with it so that we don't leave people, shocked at what we've said, or more importantly, how we've said it. And there are so many studies that support humans care, as you well know, more about tone than word choice. You can say a lot with your tone. I
Yeah.
admit, sometimes when I'm not pleased, if I ran you back a transcript of the words I chose, I could say, all I said was, but then again, when I listen into the tone, I know that maybe I'm not being as forthright as I could be. There might be some passive aggressiveness in there.
Yeah, I learned that early on in life. It was really funny when I remember changing out of the parish into and more of an executive role. I would go have difficult conversations with congregations, and I come back and I say, "Well, how did it go?" And I would recant to them, recall the conversation, and like, "You said that, and you're still here." I'm like, "Well, yeah, it didn't come across the. I mean, the transcript doesn't tell you how the tone went, but they took it really well, and they were like, I don't know how you get away with that." So you're right, tone does matter. And when you
Who do you think taught you to do that so well, Reverend Doctor? Reverend Doctor?
well, thank you. I think my mom was a truth teller. I think, but what I learned from my mom's way of truth telling was she would say in a way that sometimes annoyed people, and they
Oh,
tuned it out. So I learned to say the same thing, but in a way with either with a smile or something where it was received without the negative pushback that she might have gotten. So I learned to say it without getting the pushback she got.
excellent. I'm very blessed to have a team of 8 that works with me. We're based in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and we serve clients all around the United States. And something that some of our executive coaching clients are trying on for size is if they have something challenging to say or to ask, a difficult subject to bring up, we counsel them to use some preamble, something like, now, Keith, I know you're doing your best and you mean well. And I have some feedback to share today that I think will help this team continue to grow. So I'm learning, and as I'm learning it, I'm trying to teach our clients. Sometimes stating your intention or using a preamble is the best thing you can do so that the ego of the recipient of your behavior isn't stunned, shocked, or the person doesn't get defensive or on the offensive right away. We really have to, emotions are such a big part of communication. It doesn't make any sense to try to pretend that they aren't, right? So I like to
Right.
speak to others' emotions, try to honor them when I'm being my best self as a communicator. I always take into consideration how might the other be feeling, which is also a good way to human. If we want to make human a verb, that is taking care of others. And in the long run, there's that virtuous circle, and it ends up taking care of you and your career.
I've also had to learn because I work a lot cross culturally with other people from other countries that communication's different depending upon what culture you're coming from. So I remember I was working with an Asian individual before, and I learned that sometimes in Asian culture they will say yes to avoid conflict, having no intention of actually following through on whatever you just asked of. So it was like, oh, this is important to know because you go, well, why didn't this show up? Why did this happen?
This
It's
is
like,
we had a deal. We were going to meet. We were going to do this collaboration. So how do you then find out whether yes means yes yes or yes means no yes?
I talk more with them to make sure that we're okay with this, and this is not just me pushing something on people, especially with certain
Um,
groups. I
mm.
also learned that people who are French, when you're doing feedback with them, they're used to coming from a culture where they don't get very many compliments. So they're used to
Oh,
negative. So in our culture, when we tend to do feedback and we do, let me tell you 3 things you're doing well, and the one thing that you're not doing well. Well,
yeah.
if you come from a French culture, you go, wow, I got 3 compliments. And really in America, those 3 things we just got to throw away just so we could get to the one really important thing. But if you,
Wow. I'm just thinking about my French roots,
yeah,
and perhaps this is why sometimes I miss opportunities. Or so I've been accused of my feedback being too blunt, mostly with loved ones,
right.
especially with family, and less so with clients and college students, etc. And I wonder if that's not in my nature to get to just the heart of the matter. But it if it shuts the other person down, then we're going nowhere. So I think every year that I get older, I refine something else about my communication. And if I'm lucky enough to live into my 90s, maybe I will be a very, very good communicator, but it's a lifelong effort, don't you think?
It
It's
is.
certainly not,
You're
it's not
always
one
learning.
class
Yeah,
for
that's so
sure.
funny. So, what inspired you? Let's get into your book to write
Okay.
Communicate with Courage.
I was having so much fun doing custom training design and then presenting training in topics all over communication, all over the whole field of communication, presentation skills, conflict management, business writing, performance reviews, stress and change management. Those, the good stuff, I think, that really can make a career and a life happier and more successful. And those companies that hire us to do that, it's 10 people, it's 30 people, it's 300 people, or it might be an auditorium of 2,000 people. But I didn't have a way to get these ideas out to a larger audience. And I think we need to know about these hidden challenges in communication. I just wanted to offer what I could offer. This is my area of subject matter expertise. And I want the world to know that wherever they start, they can make more of a difference as communicators than they probably realize. So I wanted a book that would be fun, interesting. There'd be some humor. There might be some tears. They're all real life stories about myself and other real life people. And the idea was we keep it short to about 140 pages so that it's something you could read in, 2 hours, or you could dip in and try the pro moves, as I call them, and the exercises at the end of each chapter. And I'll give you a quick definition of pro moves. Pro moves are small things we can do as communicators that the average bear tends to miss. They walk on by not thinking, oh, there's an opportunity for praise, or I could have asked a clarifying question, or forgot to say thank you for that favor. It's the little things that can really lift a person up and that can also improve our own reputation. I call those pro moves, and they're sprinkled throughout the book. I'm really just trying to share and, not hide my light under a bushel basket.
No,
I
that's
guess you
good.
could say.
I like that. We all want to be better communicators. Is there a major thing we could do right away today to be a better communicator? Is there, if there's just we just have one thing we want to improve on, what would be that one thing we should all do to be a better communicator?
Let's be brave, all of us, and ask someone we trust, how did I come across just now? How did you perceive that? Is there something I could do differently or better in your opinion? Without giving constructive feedback in return, invite others to tell you what they see that you do well as a communicator, and then something that you could, in their opinion, sometimes do better. And you get a in the moment, real life, real talk example of how your behavior impacts others as a communicator. And if you can keep your mind open and keep the wall down so you can hear what people are saying, you'll learn at least how to communicate better and what's going well with that one person that you asked. And our coaching clients all around the US are taking on challenges like that, but they go ask 12 or 13 people.
Sounds like being vulnerable. It kind of sounds like
It does. We call it the
chapter
feedback
one.
challenge.
Yeah.
But the more we are vulnerable, the more we become strong. And I think everybody likes to say, Keith, well, nobody's perfect. No one's perfect. You have to have grace, give others grace, use grace with yourself. But then secretly, I don't know about you, but secretly, I expect my performance to be perfect. Or sometimes I get into negative self talk about it. So I say this that I understand humanity is about imperfection, but then I have a different expectation of myself. And when I do that, I'm also unkind and unfair sometimes to others because they can't reach my expectations either. And this is hard to say, but this is some hard work and self awareness. And this comes from asking others how they perceive, right? How I'm communicating with them, especially in times of conflict where there's great growth to be gained. If we could just stop running away from conflict and also stop rushing to get in there to win, using more collaboration, compromise, and the 5 styles of handling human conflict are listed in the book, explained. And ideally, we'd all get good at all 5. So that would be another tip. I would say that would be a good takeaway for folks who might read the book.
You talk about those 5 styles. Of your clients you've worked with, is there one style that seems to be most challenging for people?
There are 2. avoidance, and that is when we deny the situation exists or we delay dealing with it. Kind of magical thinking, hope it's gonna resolve itself. We're all adults. Well, probably not. But that's probably good for my business because we teach a lot of conflict management skills. So those teams often call. That's great. But as supervisors, especially, if someone is a manager in their workplace or their place of volunteerism or their church, then you really do have to be brave and bring up dysfunctional behavior or divisions among team members. That does fall to you. So I'm finding myself encouraging thousands of clients over the last 25 years to stop with the conflict avoidance and only avoid when you really have to, when you need a third party, or when now is not the time because you're too angry to see straight, or you need to gather data. Okay, avoid, but don't avoid it forever if it needs to come up. And the other dangerous when overused style is competing. And that is to take the MO, walk in with a modus operandi of I will win and you will lose. And this is the person who hates to be wrong and often can't apologize easily. And I am describing myself in many ways because I'm pretty competitive. And I think I was raised to be that way. So now I look for opportunities to accommodate more. But a good personality assessment is a wonderful idea and a great investment in oneself, something that is valid and reliable statistically. And then you go through with a trained practitioner to hopefully to help you understand your personality report. Life-changing for me. The first time I did it about 15 years ago. And now we make sure every coaching client does take our personality assessment so we can see the strengths and weaknesses we're dealing with.
I used to tell my staff I was wrong once, 1973, August 13th. So if it happens again, right. I'll let you know. But
too funny.
And they say what happened that day. I'm like, I don't remember, but it was something.
I know. I want to know what happened that day. That's when you rolled through the stoplight instead of a full and complete stop, Keith.
That was it. Exactly.
One thing.
The one thing I've ever done wrong. But so I'm curious as you think about this book, and I think every organization could benefit from a book like this. I always wonder, how do we best take a book like this into a organizational setting and best utilize it to improve communication? You have like a suggestion of, if you're going to do this as a group, how would you do that?
Oh, sure. Well, we love designing book workshops. And so I've put on our website will probably be in your show notes, but it's that gladieuxconsulting.com, that French last name, GLADIEUX, like X-ray, consulting.com. And folks could go there. And just a few months ago, we created a companion guide, myself and my designers. And we've got that out there for free on the website currently. And it takes you through how you can apply what you're reading to your own life for each chapter. Another way to do it in a group would be everyone choose one exercise, 10 short chapters, choose one exercise, try it out in your own life, come back to the next Monday morning meeting or your next training time together and go around the room and simply share, here's the exercise, here were the results. And that opens eyes, and you learn a lot from your coworkers just by speaking what exercise you undertook.
How would you handle this in a corporation setting or organizational setting where the leader is a bad communicator, but you want to help them to grow? Because I know we all maybe know we need to do this, but the person who needs to be the one to lead this, spearhead this, is really bad at it. But how do we communicate to him he's really bad, or her that she's really bad at it?
I would look for some one-on-one time with that leader, and I would share what I observed, and I would offer steps so that person could begin to immediately improve their reputation and their skill set. You need both credibility and a strong skill set. And if I could gain their trust, and usually that comes pretty easy because my motives are good. I really care about their success, and I think they can really tell. I might ask them to make apologies or a verbal admittance of some weaknesses that they are working on. And I was just today coaching a CEO at a medical practice, and they have become aware of their shortcomings. and how they've interacted with employees hasn't always been picture perfect, of course. And this person is now working into conversation. Hey, I'm in coaching and I'm getting a goal plan every month. So you're going to see some new behaviors from me because I realize I need to grow too. And I just know how it feels to be an employee when someone with more organizational power is willing to admit they have things to work on. I'd follow them anywhere, and so that person is starting to realize, oh, after I told employees that I am getting homework and working on me and I want feedback, it changed the tenor, the tone or the vibe of that workplace. And it has to be sincere, because whether you're 4 years old or 104 years old, you can always, there's often a feeling, maybe not always, but there's often a feeling when someone is trying to pull the wool over your eyes.
So
I think I'd go for one-on-one, of course,
yeah,
because that's a heart-to-heart conversation.
and I think that's important. And I think, again, having the courage to communicate, even with people who are above you, is a big part of your book, right?
It is. They need feedback too. And if you do it with a sincere intention to make the relationship better or customer service better or the workplace better, and you can state that intention, it's going to help you along through a tough conversation, as is remembering, if you're complaining about anybody else's leadership style, communication, whatever that is, ask yourself, is that ever me? Do I sometimes have that weakness? And if then you see that in yourself, verbalize it. I know I do this too.
Right.
Is how I put it.
So
and here's what I'm doing to get around it.
Yeah. So you have 4 hidden challenges. Give us those 4 challenges and kind of give us a little summary of those 4.
Sure. We have, in my practice, I've seen people hide from risk, and that's when they're afraid to let us see who they are. They're afraid to take risk. Perhaps they've been punished for it. Perhaps they haven't had an easy time in childhood. It would be nice if there were people around us that were helping us to see our strengths. We don't all have that privilege and blessing. So we can start hiding from risk. Defining to be right is when you're so darn sure that nobody's even going to try to tell you differently, because you make it impossible to do so. You will not say, you might be right, or I might be wrong. The third hidden challenge I write about in the book is rationalizing the negative. And in that chapter, I take on pessimism, and I ask our readers to think long and hard if they identify as pessimists, or if others would identify them in that way, to perhaps at any age in life make a change and make a choice about optimism. It's not the easy choice, but we do need to spend some time, visualizing positive outcomes that might be possible, or we may never see those positive outcomes, and plus it can just be a real drag to live with or work with someone who is very aligned with pessimistic thinking. So I offer some solutions in the book to help readers deal with that in loved ones or coworkers and in themselves. And the fourth hidden challenge that I write about is called settling for good enough. And it's okay sometimes. I mean, we all have to just choose what is satisficing, what will get me through here. When we're going through tough times, it's hard to really give 110%, but we can't always be settling for good enough if we want to leave any kind of legacy in our families and in our teams as communicators. So I offer some steps for people to stop settling for good enough and choose some things that matter to work towards.
I love that. How has writing this book and all the research you did that you put behind this book changed your own communication style and personal growth?
Well, I've laughed a bit because I must have been out of my mind to say, I'm going to write a book called Communicate with Courage. Keith, for the rest of my life, now I have to communicate with courage, or I'm the lady who wrote the book. So it's certainly helping me look at myself and where I'm not brave. And some of those places within, I am just not quite ready to face my failings. And others, I'm ready to go do the hard parts that really make relationships better. And I'm always asking for another chance, for grace. I'm asking for feedback, because I figure if I can get others working along with me to help me get better, and I'm helping them get better at this, we're all going to win. So I don't know if that's a straight answer to your question or not. How has it changed my life? It's required me to be brave personally and professionally, because now pretty much everybody knows about the book. And it's required me to become a better time manager because thankfully the book has, I think it's got 11 literary awards to date. And that's fantastic and so exciting for myself and my team. But it does mean more interviews and more time paying attention to the book. At the same time, I want to be teaching and training and coaching just as much as I always was. So there's a bit of sort of, I feel like I'm raising a book and it's 2 years old now. And I'm also managing my consulting and training practice. So I've had to practice good time management.
So let's talk about your consulting. Give me a real life illustration of someone who has benefited from your consulting and become a better communicator.
Okay. Well, I had 2 coaching sessions before this interview, and they both ran about 90 minutes, and that's about where we like them. It's a deep discussion of what's going well and what could be better in one's work life. And the first was with a high-ranking CEO who is finding their voice in dealing with challenging board members who aren't likely to take responsibility, sometimes don't follow through. You know how it goes. Sometimes they get staff worried about things when we don't want them talking to staff about things. There are just things going on. And this person really needed to find their courage and remember that they are just as valuable as anyone else in the room when asking for behavior change diplomatically. And then the very next session was with someone 30 or 40 years younger who is an administrative assistant. And that person, one of their goals for this month was to research different colleges that might be of interest and enroll. And so we were able to celebrate in the second month of coaching that was completed. And we're also looking at some self-talk with that person. And they're documenting for me and for themselves the kind things they say to themselves and the unkind things. And then we are going to take that list of unkind self-talk, and in the next session, we'll see what's true and what's not true, and we will cross off and let go anything that's from the past or was a past label, stereotype, whatever that might be, that was a sign that's not true, that's not helping their self-esteem. So I guess what I love about the job is all of the different types of humans, military, academia, industry, manufacturing, healthcare, banking, nonprofits, some churches, not often, but sometimes churches call. And what they're looking for is often personality assessment and one-on-one or team coaching to help them lead better together. I love the diversity, I would say, in the clients. So there's a lot of good that's happening every day. It's very addictive.
Oh, cool. Are you discovering that there's a difference with communication based on age? I noticed that maybe younger people, because of the social media aspects, maybe struggle with communication a little bit more than an older generation might. Are you noticing some of that?
I would say I'm noticing less. I think it's a struggle in some way for all of us. I'm noticing more differences in personality types and what the different personality styles are challenged by. And that holds pretty consistent across those. We could, if we wanted to say there are 4 main human personality styles, there's a lot more, of course, that goes into a person's way of interacting with the world. But just to start at that 30,000 foot level, I see more differences among personalities than I do age or gender.
So what are the 4 personality types? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, people call them different things, but there are only 4. So it depends on what assessment you're looking at. I like the terminology. I believe it's psychologist David Merrill came up with these 4. And I think of it as driver, kick butt and get things done person, expressive. And the expressive is very relational and gregarious, outgoing, could talk to anyone about anything. Then there's the amiable, and all of us have some of all 4 styles, but the person who has a lot of amiable in their style, they really seek to keep the peace, to keep things cool, make sure everybody's happy. And analysts value data and metrics very much, and they're thinking logically and they're thinking process improvement and research. And so what's really nice is when we do personality assessment with an entire team, whether that's 30 people or 3 people, we can share the graphs and share the reports and look and understand, wow, the way this person is interacting comes from DNA, which is not changeable, and largely from upbringing and life experience. And our upbringing is also not changeable. Now we can gain and learn new skills, but it really serves us well to understand at least the 4 human social styles or personalities, and then the pros and cons of having a lot of any of those 4.
Yeah, it's been fun. I've taken every one
Have
there
you?
is.
Well,
Myers
you know
Briggs.
thyself.
Yeah, that's right. I keep thinking it's going to change, but it never really does.
Well, it might be changing a little, and sometimes it's that 3% change that can really change your life.
Yeah, I know I went from a high D in the Myers Briggs to a high I, which was an interesting shift.
But they're related because those are the 2 most risk-taking and go get it styles, the most
Yeah,
achievement-oriented styles. So they're very closely wedded,
I discovered
and
that.
you're changing the world. I mean, I don't know when you rest.
That's what
You
my
have a lot
wife.
of roles.
That's what my wife asked me.
Yeah. Well, rest is not our favorite thing. I'm also DI, or driver expressive. And I find it hard to go to a movie theater for 2 hours and watch a movie. Ooh, my mind is like, how many people you could be helping or emailing, or you could be writing training. It's sometimes it's hard for us to be still, right?
Yes, exactly. I have to put music on so I'm not thinking, which is
Love it.
yeah,
Love it.
right. Or watch some ridiculous TV show. Um, I'm curious. So, what's next for you? You've gotten this, and you're starting to gain momentum. Is there
Yeah.
a new book on the horizon? There is to communicate with love or something else
Ooh,
besides
that's a good
courage?
idea. No, because I'm still all these ideas that I put in the book, a lot of them were fresh and new from my 5-year writing process. And now folks are wanting keynotes and workshops based on the book. So I'm still getting to know how I want to teach what's in the book and getting the word out about the book. So I'm not ready to write another book yet. But I did just hire another team member, and she's a real go-getter. And so I think I'm excited to see what my team and I will do this year. We're out to change lives and change organizations by helping people be better communicators and leaders with humor, a dose of humor as we look at ourselves.
So, like a
So I
community.
think the doors, I keep believing that the right clients come around at the right time. And that has worked out now for at least 20, 25 years. So, I'm just hoping that the phone keeps ringing, Keith, and that people keep opening their hearts to us and opening their organizations to us so we can come be guides as people learn.
So, as a consultant, how would
Yep.
you counsel someone who wants to be a person who communicates with courage? What would you say are the first steps they need to work on to do that?
Well, we've talked about getting feedback about how you come across. I would say make sure you deeply understand and own your own unique mission statement. So, what do you love to do? And I know no job is all roses and fun and sunshine, but what do you love to do? And then who do you serve by doing it? How are they changed as a result of knowing you? Once you figure that out, what your niche is, how you're going to contribute, what people will be saying about you at your memorial service when your body lies down and takes its last breath, what do you want people to say about you? And then once you know that, then the doors start to open, and also fears will start to come up. And that's when we begin to try to articulate or define the fear so that we can work through it. And hopefully with a mentor, a guide, or a coach can help with that, or a good friend, an accountability partner. So know your mission. And if you'd like help figuring out what your unique mission is, back to our website, gladieuxconsulting.com, hit free tools, one of the tabs at the top, and down a bunch of 1 to 2 page. I think they're fun and colorful, e-fillable, downloadable. We want to be a service. That's one of the things you can grab from our website, the unique mission exercise. And that keeps me going through good times and bad to remember what I've said about myself is my unique mission. And some people have more than one, and we wear different hats, but thinking generally now as a communicator, what will you be known for? And that will open some doors.
So, you've segued into my other favorite question. What do you want your legacy to be?
I think I want it to be what it is becoming, and that is that I see people's potential. I will meet them where they are. I will hold them to fair, high standards, and hopefully welcome their feedback in the process. It's an honor to be on the journey with the people I get to help. They let me see their heart. I let them see mine. And we celebrate the wins that come up from the goals in communication. And we try to laugh about the failures, realizing the failures are the best stories when you're teaching somebody something later. And also, they help you. If you're going to take a risk and fail as a communicator, it's certainly going to help you empathize with the rest of us who take risks and mess up. I had a pretty large keynote last month. There were 1,500 people in the room in Denver, grant writers, the Grant Summit, Grant Writers Conference. And the keynote was really going very well. I got to chat. I was doing highlights from each chapter, speaking for a little over an hour. I got to chapter 9, and I think it was that Denver air being the mile high city, all of the dryness of living inside the conference center for several days. I don't know, but I lost my voice completely, and I was embarrassed. I tried it. It didn't sound good. It's being broadcast also online to people who paid to receive the keynote. And I remember I turned my back just for a second to the audience, usually a no-no, and I sort of shook my hands up at the skies. I just wanted them to know. And also I was thinking, guardian angels, do you not see me in this suit, in these heels with all of these people? Some angel, maybe guardian angel, ran up to the stage with a basket of cough drops. I popped a couple in, took another sip. This didn't take long. This was maybe 3 minutes. It felt like 3 hours to me. And I got half my voice back and I finished. And, the audience was excited. I think that I got to the end, but it sure wasn't what I planned. And I think of myself as a pro, and I was shocked that my voice gave up on me. We can't prevent these things from happening, but it's going to make me a better teacher and more empathic when I'm working with someone who fears public speaking, right?
Right. Exactly. Been there. So I love to ask you this as well. Where can people connect with you again to make sure we can find you and get your book, Communicate with Courage? Where can they buy that?
Everywhere, happily. It's available on Amazon and every bookseller that you might be a fan of. You can go to that bookseller. You can get it on our website, gladieuxconsulting.com. But I do hope folks will give me a call if I can help. My cell phone number is 260-450-4202. My business card says 8 days a week because I love the Beatles and I love rock and roll, but also because it's okay to call outside of business hours. I definitely feel like I am pursuing my passion. So 8 to 5 doesn't apply very often. And then I do a newsletter, and it's pretty fun. I think people are enjoying it. I always include a music video that ties into communication somehow, and I write it 4 times a year, and you can sign up for that. It's called Breakdown, named after a Tom Petty song, actually. It's called Breakdown, and that's available on the website, along with back issues that people might enjoy. The free tools, I think. They can go to links to research and links to articles and small things that can help with a job search or managing a conflict or working on listening skills or writing or speaking well. We try to put good stuff in there for free every quarter.
That's awesome. As we wrap up our phenomenal conversation, what key takeaways do you want to leave with the audience from our conversation?
I want to remind everyone that there's no one that you're going to meet in this lifetime that is more or less valuable than you at the soul level. At least that is my deep belief. And once we get that down, that we're all in this journey together, here to improve and better ourselves, celebrate our strengths, celebrate our failures because we were brave to take a risk, lift others up, and we start to see ourselves as equally valuable, a lot of those communication fears will fall away.
Well, Michelle, thanks so much for what you do and helping us be better communicators. So continue the hard work of making us all learn to communicate with each other better.
You too. I'm such a fan of your work. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Trailblazers and Titans. If you enjoyed our conversation and found value in the insights shared, please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners and continue bringing you the stories of the world's most inspiring leaders. Don't forget to follow us on social media for updates and exclusive content. Join our community of Trailblazers and Titans, and let's continue to learn, grow, and transform our visions into reality together. Until next time, keep blazing your trail and striving for greatness.